Welcome to Hacking the Hustle. This is your host, Benjamin Sklar. And on today's show, we have the CEO of NVAL, Layne Nadeau. How you doing, Layne?
I'm doing well, Benji. How's New York today?
It's fantastic. I'm excited to have you on the show.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
So for those listening, Layne is the CEO, as I said, of NVAL, which is a company that delivers tokenized asset pricing and analytics for the NFT markets. And I met—
That's a mouthful, hey?
Yep. I met Layne at NFT NYC in New York City earlier this year, and I was really impressed with him. He's really tall. He's a sailor. He lives in Canada, and I wanted to invite him on the show to talk about the NFT markets, crypto, why he's building what he's building, and everything in between. So let's kick it off, Layne. Tell us, what is NVAL and why are you dedicating all of your time to building this product?
Yeah, sure. So that mouthful you started with on NFT market pricing, that is NVAL. So we deliver real-time market valuations on NFTs. And we do that as a B2B platform to enable other products. Now, any market, any capital market, any asset market, it lives and dies by kind of how efficiently it runs, who the buyers and sellers are, how much they know about the assets, and how hungry they are to buy and sell. And pricing is a reflection of that. It's what comes out of all of that. So about a year and a half ago, I started diving into the NFT space, fell in love with the technology, tried to buy a bunch of NFTs in various areas, and realized that there was no way to price them. I had no idea if sandbox land that was listed for 2 ETH was the equivalent of land in Montana, and then some of it that was listed for 50 ETH was the equivalent of Manhattan. And there was just no answer, and there was no way to sort of find out easily. So I saved all my money and spent it all building technology to answer that fundamental question. It's been a long road so far, and we're just at the beginning of it, but it's been a lot of fun.
Tell me, Layne, whose problem are you solving?
Yeah, great question. The problem became every market participant that cares about the price of an NFT or the asset associated to an NFT. So if you buy art because you like the look of it, then or you get it given to you and you like the look of it, then all that matters is that you like it and it's pretty and you can display it, or it does something for you. Every other use of that piece of art or that token or that asset, every other use, the value of it matters. And if you can't accurately or efficiently value it in the marketplace, then you're very limited in what you can do, or at least how efficiently you can do it. Imagine if you could never tell the market value of your house. You say, well, I can live in it, so that's great. But if you want to get a mortgage, or if you want to insure it, you have to know, or buy and sell it, you have to know what the market says it's worth. And that's a moving target. It changes all the time. It changes in real time and 24 hours a day in the NFT markets, as it does, I guess, in the housing markets too. But so that problem is really everybody's problem. So, I mean, we took a little narrower view on that and said, well, I know how to do enterprise software. I spent about 20 years delivering enterprise software and projects, and about 15 of that, or sorry, about 5 of that in institutional finance and that sort of world. And what I realized was that's a really hard world to survive in, or to live in. And most of the NFT tools out there and crypto tools, they didn't really stack up to that level of scrutiny or quality. So there are some of them for sure. But that was really our differentiator was, well, we're going to go serve those funds that have NFTs on their balance sheet and need to report to LPs. We're going to serve the broker dealers that need to report, using compliant standards. And we're going to serve the tax platforms that need to, meet IRS standards or those kind of things. So that's really who we're solving the problems for. but frankly, everybody has the problem or the challenge. So,
Right. Crypto markets, NFT markets are obviously in a bear market right now. Things are down. I'm sure you're pitching to investors on trying to raise money right now. And it's a hard pitch when you're an NFT startup. How do you overcome that obstacle?
well, it'd be a better question to ask me in another month or so, because we're actively doing that right now. So I don't have an outcome answer for you. I guess really it comes down to time horizon. So we're building infrastructure that we fully expect is going to be incredibly important in 2 to 10 years time. And how that plays out is anybody's guess, but the downturn on a month to month or even a yearly basis, that doesn't affect our roadmap or our goals. It might affect our timing more than anything, and sort of how flush our customers are with activity. But we still look at ourselves as an infrastructure player, a B2B player at that. And so as long as those other businesses are healthy and continuing to build through any bear market, then, you know, it still works well for us too. And actually I have one more follow-up to that. One of the areas that we're seeing a lot of interest is in what I call brand specific marketplaces. So NBA Top Shots is a good example of that. They built their own NFT marketplace that's purely focused on the NBA, and it's for NBA fans and collectors. And by and large, if you target NBA fans, they don't care if the crypto markets go down. They care if the collectibles markets, they're in a different market space. And so we have multiple customers in our pipeline that are, you know, working with major leagues around the world in motorsports, in cricket, in football, European football. And, you know, one of our insulating factors is that sports fans are not that worried about the price of Bitcoin or Ethereum. So it means that they keep doing what they do, which is collect and be fans. And so that works for us.
When Gary Vaynerchuk started VCon and the ticket to the conference was an NFT, that was the first time I really saw the utility of an NFT rather than just an art collectible. How do you see the differences between NFTs that have utilities and those that don't, and how you're going to go about pricing them?
Yeah, sure. So I always start talking to people, I guess, new to the NFT space or this technology space. And one of my refrains is NFTs are not the asset. NFTs are paired to an asset. And so what we're really pricing is an asset class, and that asset class is not NFTs. So that asset class might be concert tickets. It might be fine art or digital art. It might be real estate. It might be virtual real estate. But that is the asset market that we're pricing. And so we look at the markets holistically. If we took real estate, for example, the amount of NFT-based real estate, and I mean physical real estate, is very limited, but there's a lot of real estate out there that transacts. So you can actually draw all these parallels against that asset class, and then you just apply a premium or a discount based on whether it's been tokenized and exists in the NFT markets. And that bears out, the market decides whether it likes real estate better or not if it's tokenized. And that's an access to capital question, it's all of those things, but the market decides how it likes to price things. And so pricing a utility token, the market prices it, we reflect the market. And again, we don't compare a utility token like a concert ticket or a Vaynerchuk NFT to a Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is about profile pictures and exclusive club access, but a different club.
Interesting. Layne, what is a contrarian view that you have? Something that you and NVAL believes that the market sees otherwise?
That's currently playing out in the market, or that the prevailing wisdom is?
Let's say prevailing wisdom, something that you think that,
sure.
Yeah, take it however you want.
Sure. So when I talked about my time horizon of 2 to 10 years, that's probably even conservative. So the prevailing wisdom, or at least the people in crypto that are very excited about what's possible, they seem to think that capital markets will shift over to using digital asset rails, to using blockchains, and to be using NFTs for real estate, for example. And I think anywhere that property rights already exist, or that we have existing systems or mechanisms for these markets, they seem to work pretty well. And so these major asset classes with big money at stake, they're not going to move fast, especially if they're regulated. They're going to take decades, if ever, and it's not going to change who's in control at the end of the day, just because we change the technology that makes it possible. And so I'm focusing on areas where we don't have established ownership rights. So digital assets or digital art, we had no way to enforce or guarantee ownership or property rights on those and to differentiate them. And so that's why they exploded. We all of a sudden came from 0 to 1. You couldn't own a JPEG before. Now all of a sudden that's possible. That's fantastic. But we could always own real estate. So that's not going to change for some time because it doesn't need to, right? It's been working arguably fine. They could always be more efficient, but that's a long, long, long road. So I guess the short version is I'm going to have a lot more gray hair before most of the stuff people think is going to become tokenized actually becomes tokenized.
We'll see about that. Layne, what is something that you're excited about in the market? Something that gets your blood rushing, that you think is going to really take the crypto markets, NFT markets, and NVAL to a new level?
Ooh, narrow it down to one or two. That's a tricky one. The amount of value that has been created and exchanged from 0 to 1. So I'll take Bored Ape Yacht Club or Yuga Labs. They created billions and billions of dollars of economic activity and value from scratch. So they started at 0 and they created an amazing amount of value. Now that's pretty impressive. But what really gets me excited is when you look at what they did at its first principles, which is they just created really good intellectual property, IP, and then they licensed it out or they made it accessible. When you look at the value and the amount of IP that is out in existing asset classes today, and you consider how quickly that could move to using digital asset rails like NFTs, it is orders of magnitude bigger than that, and it can happen so fast. So I'm talking about every Disney brand, Marvel brand, every luxury sports brand, or sorry, luxury goods brand, every sports entertainment franchise in the world can move to start using this for their digital or for their intellectual property. And that gets me excited and terrified because it can happen in a year's time. We could have $1 trillion worth of NFT assets that already existed over here in the old traditional world, and all of a sudden they could be on chain. And that's fascinating to me. And that is why NVAL is here, because it won't happen until the ecosystem has enough tools to make that viable and efficient.
Layne, do you see the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, as a friend or a foe to the NFT markets?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. I think they're starting to understand, and this is my read from, I met a bunch of people in Austin at Consensus this year that are in the legislative circles and had a really good chance to candidly pick their brain and talk it through. And the amount of understanding of, again, separating the technology from the asset that's actually involved was really encouraging. And so to my previous comment about how the NFT is not the asset, art is the asset, or a collectible is the asset, The SEC is starting to look at those things a little more nuanced, and they're not just painting all NFTs with the same brush. And I think that's a really positive view on things. So from that perspective, you know, the SEC, when you start to see securities show up, absolutely, they have a role to play. And I think they're going to do a good job of that. I've always been a little leery when they didn't necessarily, and not them only, but other regulators didn't differentiate between different types of digital assets and technology.
Got it.
So that was a long-winded way of saying I think they're going to do a good job because they're getting there.
That's good to know. As a founder and someone who's running a company and fundraising, I'm sure there's lessons you've learned along the way. If someone were to reach out to you and ask for advice, and they were launching their own company in the NFT, crypto, blockchain space right now, what would be some major tips that you would give them?
Oh, sure. So as I mentioned, I spent about 20 years delivering technology projects. And so the execution side of it, there's decades of learning to go on. What I've really noticed as a learning for me is around product market fit and about disassociating or not getting confused by being a hammer in search of a nail. So to put that another way, a friend of mine used to say, fall in love with problems, not with solutions. So tech looking for a problem to solve is never going to solve anything, nor is that company. But if you have a problem and you know that problem really, really well, and then you happen to know some technology that can actually solve that problem, that is your first problem, your first hurdle, and frankly, your last hurdle, because you will solve that problem till the day that company changes to something completely different. And that's what we've done at NVAL. I mean, I felt the problem myself. I recognized the problem. I recognized the solution and the technology that it was going to take to do it. And that's what I think every founder needs to do. Once you know how well to define that problem and talk about that problem, you can rally people to your cause. You can rally capital, you can rally team members, and then just do right by them, and they'll want to be around.
I completely agree. Following the lean startup method is definitely the right way to go. I've learned this lesson the hard way as well, where I started a company, raised money, and it was a solution before the problem. So I've paid the price. So
I had the luxury of 20 years of solving business problems with technology and not the other way around. Finding technology and finding a use for it. That's never worked for me in my entire career. So I learned this lesson not quickly, but very slowly.
Lucky you. Layne, before I let you go, I want to ask you a few more questions. One, what's a NFT or crypto token that you are excited about?
Oh, the utility tokens, that's what got me wound up. So ones that don't even have artwork, but that became a passport to a funding stream or assets, or so an example would be, I guess, like Uniswap's LP tokens. You can, if you provide liquidity to the Uniswap protocol, you get an NFT back that is your stake in that ecosystem, essentially. That is as nerdy as it gets, because nobody wants to post that on Twitter, but that's what gets me jazzed.
Nice. How do you see the metaverse playing a role in the NFT world?
I think it's kind of the other way around. I think we've always had a metaverse, and now that metaverse can progress with ownership, with the ability to own things in the digital sphere. And so NFTs make that possible, and where and how that's going to play out, I don't think we really know. I don't think anybody's just going to magically want to spend all their time in a 3D virtual world, but owning anything in that world, owning a Gucci bag, owning an avatar, it's not possible without NFTs. And that's one of the reasons I fell so in love with NFT technology.
Interesting. All right. So for my signature question, Layne, if there was one thing you could do to improve this world, what would you do and why?
I would get everybody a strong education. And I don't know if it doesn't have to be the same for everyone, but at least a K to 12 education that meets the highest standards we have in the world at the moment. And frankly, I don't know where it has the highest standards, but the reason is I see so many challenges societally and socially and politically and in business or professional job world. And almost every time you can find a way that really wouldn't have been an issue if people had a better understanding of what was happening and was at play. And I think that all just comes down to education. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be in K to 12, I guess, but perspective on the world. So getting a bit of travel in there and educating yourself on what's out there.
Yeah, I like the travel aspect to it. I agree with you. So, but where can people find you? Where can they find NVAL?
So nval.com, nval.com. And we're on Twitter fairly regular as well. You can find me at Layne Nadeau. I have a unique enough name that I can just get my name everywhere, so that helps. But nval.com is probably your easiest bet, and there's press releases and articles and all sorts of fun stuff. Or just look for the really tall guy at the next NFT tech conference.
Amazing. Thank you.
Just start asking around.
Thank you, Layne, for hopping on Hacking the Hustle. I really appreciate your time and what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
It's been a pleasure, Benji. Thanks very much.
Awesome. See ya.